And we are live, yes, on a very busy weather night. He's Joe Rayo over there,
And
and
am I pointing in the right direction?
a point opposite.
Uh, Over there?
No, the other way.
Never mind.
A
He's so
minus
jealous.
reverse.
Yeah.
And he and this is the Joe and Joe weather show on a Friday night. I'm
Yes.
exhausted, by the way. 5 nights in a row. Well, no, 4 nights in a row. You took Monday off. Um, what a busy day and busy night that we have. So nice to see everybody on board tonight on a Friday night, which is usually a night that folks are, doing other things, happy hour and so on.
Right. Right. And it does look like, well, actually, we're going to probably break a couple of records Saturday and Sunday. And I think Sunday morning, along about 7 or 8 o'clock, there'll probably be a band of showers and maybe even some thunderstorms to wake everybody up.
There might be a kaboom.
Yes.
Where is that kaboom? There's supposed to be an enormous kaboom. What was it? The ammonium what space modulator?
P238
Right, I couldn't remember.
space modulate.
That's from Martin the Martian. Yeah, so we might get a couple of rumbles of thunder, but meanwhile, really busy tonight. In all seriousness, we're getting pretty much a spring severe weather outbreak across the western Gulf states, and this morning SPC expanded that area of risk, the moderate risk. It made it enormous.
Yes.
And we've got another big risk day coming up for tomorrow for areas a little to the east across the Gulf states. So going from eastern Louisiana over toward Alabama and Georgia, they actually SPC pushed that marginal risk to much like you had predicted yesterday for Saturday, push the marginal risk up further north, almost to the Pennsylvania state line. They kind of backed off a bit for Sunday, but they did expand the area. So we're going to take a look at that. We've got I would call a major shift in the upper air pattern. That's actually going to be quite violent in my view, in the sense that it's going to change pretty quickly from the extreme nature that we have right now in terms of the upper air pattern to where we're going to be a week from today, possibly talking about some snow to ice to rain. And, we could take a look at the longer term and any of the other usual nonsense that we look at. Big ice storm, by the way, for the Great Lakes, for the middle Mississippi Valley. Flash flooding. This is a big weather night.
Indeed, and just getting into the long range, Joe, I did post the experimental 3 to 4 week probability map for temperatures from the Climate Prediction Center, and it's no question of a doubt from the 25th of January all the way until I believe it's the 7th the 7th of February. They are predicting for the Mid Atlantic and Northeast, and for a broad area of the country below normal temperatures. And
Mm-hmm.
this is quite a flip from what we have been seeing in recent days and what we're going to be seeing here tomorrow. So, most definitely, as we have been promoting this for the past several days, a change is coming. It may not be coming immediately, but by later next week, and especially in the week after, we're going to be looking at quite a different story as opposed to what we're looking at right now.
You are absolutely correct. So, with that in mind, the Christmas tree is lit up on the Weather Service watches and warnings map tonight, Joe. You've got every color imaginable, from severe thunderstorm watches in South Texas to tornado watches, Northeast Texas, Arkansas, into southern Missouri. The dark red, that's all flash flood warnings. The dark green, flash flood watches running up into most of Illinois and northern Indiana, southern Michigan. And then just north and west of all of this, you look at what's going on in southern Missouri, Joe. You go a handful of miles. You go, relatively speaking, a handful of miles. You go from a tornado watch to a winter storm, to a flash flood warning, to a winter storm warning over literally a handful of miles, which
Right,
is pretty astounding. You got
right.
winter storm warnings up from Kansas all through the Great Lakes, up in upstate New York, ice storm warnings up for the northernmost counties. Also, for southeastern Michigan. I believe Detroit may be under an ice storm warning here. And we have winter storm watches for the rest of northern New York with flash flood watches, winter storm watches for northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and the southern half of Maine. The northern half of Maine is already under a winter storm warning. And from another system, we've got much of Washington, Oregon, and Idaho under winter storm warnings tonight. So very, very busy indeed. And of course, what's playing out in the middle of the country is due to the fact that we've got this really, really stretched out, extreme upper air pattern set up.
It is. It's absolutely amazing. I don't know what's wrong with my voice all of a sudden. Um, it's an interesting dichotomy, if I may use that term, here in the Northeast, though, as you just pointed out for this weekend. Because meanwhile, I could see here on Sunday in the lower Hudson Valley, places like Mount Vernon, places like Yonkers, for example, touching 70 degrees. And meanwhile, get in the car and travel up on the Northway 87, and you can go from that near 70-degree reading on Sunday to right into that wintry mess, let's say to the north of Glens Falls, and that really icy, dangerous scenario up in extreme northern New York State. Places like Messina, Paul Smith's. Yes, there is actually a town up in that neck of the woods, named Paul Smith. I don't know who Paul Smith was, but he's got a town named after him in Lake Placid. So really wild changes over a relatively short area,
Yeah.
geographical area of the country on Sunday.
Moderate risk of severe weather tonight. I just put up SPC's map, and this looked. You would think we were in March or April, looking at the extent of this severe weather risk, and that flash is SPC just updating it a little bit. Doesn't look like they changed very much of it. As far as working tornado watches, let me just bring up the home page, and it looks like we still have two. Oh, now we have three working tornado watches. Hang on a second. I'm going to open this window up. Yeah, it looks like we have. Well, it's hard to tell on this map. Hang on. Let me go back to the one I had. It looks like we have two tornado watches up, but the tornado watch is huge. The one that was put up an hour ago covers areas from Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri, all in one big, gigantic mess. Plus, you have a previous one that's watched. By the way, Joe, SPC is putting out statements, mesoscale discussions regarding the freezing rain that is going on through much of the middle Mississippi Valley. I'm just going to bring up this one here. This is talking about areas from eastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin, including Milwaukee, but not quite to Chicago. Talking about freezing rain rates of ice accretion of 0.05 of an inch every 3 hours, and then followed by snowfall rates of 1 to 2 inches an hour.
That's not the way to do it. You should, if you're going to have ice, you have to hope that the snow arrives before the ice, at least to serve as a buffer. Now you're going to have the ice underneath a significant snow cover. That's not good.
No, it's not. And the other mesoscale discussion. Let me see if it looks like it may be for the same area. Yeah, it looks like they issued this one. The one I just read to you was the updated one. But one of the things that we I found this recently. I think someone gave me the link to it. Whoever it was, I forgot. But thank you for this. Lightningmaps.org, and you can put up virtually real-time lightning strikes. And I'm gonna turn the volume on. I don't know if you can hear, Joe. Can you hear what sounds like a Geiger counter? Like little ticking?
Um, Not really.
Okay, so yeah, it could be how I have it routed, but trust me, folks, if you're at home, if you're watching, lightningmaps.org, you can actually turn on the upper left. There is the speaker symbol. You just click on that, and it'll make these ticking sounds every time there's a lightning strike someplace. And right, look at a lot of lightning strikes all day long. There's a whole bunch of them going on right now in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Let me see if I can get a little bit closer.
It's
5 or 6
amazing.
lightning strikes. Just they're popping up pretty quickly. And of course, I think they're in that tornado watch right now in that part of Texas. And to the northeast, we have had a ton of lightning strikes earlier. This is around Cooper, Texas, and Commerce, Texas. Neither of which I have been to. Um, I was briefly in Dallas, but yeah, this is a pretty good site to use when it comes to watching a thunderstorm activity. I'm going to go to the wider view here so we can see the extent of the shower and thunderstorm activity that's going on, and it extends. By the way, you've got showers and storms happening all the way up through Missouri and north of St. Louis into central Illinois. So this is a pretty, very busy night when it comes to severe weather. I think we're going to have a bunch of tornadoes out of this when it's all said and done.
I would agree. I would agree. The time of greatest diurnal heating is happening right now down there. I can't believe I'm saying that. It is, after all, the 10th of January. But if anything is going to pop, it has to be now and over the next hour or two.
Well, the models are actually maintaining this line and in some instances strengthening it during tonight. This area down here is notorious for getting the thunderstorms to really hold on during the evening and nighttime hours. And I have to tell you, when I was looking at the mesoscale, let me see if I could bring up. And I have it here somewhere. I got to find it. Hang on. I got so many open windows as there was so much stuff going on that I wanted to get into. Um, let's see. There it is. So I was, bringing up the mesoscale analysis, Joe. I actually it was very impressive in terms of the dew points, especially. How often do you see dew points running up into the 70s in January? I mean, this was crazy stuff. It might be a little bit hard to see, but if you go to the SPC website, folks, and you can link from there to all of this. The mesoscale, you click on that, and I got the. Let me take the watches and warnings off just to make it a little cleaner. And uh, there we go. So the dew points right now are they're crazy. They're in the upper 60s and low 70s. You have really, really strong tropical forcing that is going on. When you look at the satellite loop, you have not only do you have this jet that's coming out across Mexico and moving up through West Texas, but the Bermuda High is actually, if you watch the clouds from the southern edge of the Bermuda High, moving across South Florida and then just starting to feed into the southeast. So we're already actually seeing the juicing up of the atmosphere in the southeast and the eastern part of the Gulf states and the southeast for tomorrow's severe weather event.
Right. I was briefly.
Mrs. Rayo in the room?
Are you heading to your?
Yeah, I'm going to the club.
Going to the club.
You can hear the ticking.
Yes.
Oh, you can? Okay, great. Let me turn the ticking off. That's what that ticking is, folks. Those are lightning strikes that are going on. Have a nice night, Mrs. Rayo.
Okay. You boys enjoy yourself.
We'll behave.
She's one of the directors of the local German American club, and there's like an informal get together on Friday nights. And she actually asked me. She said, "Do you want to come?" And I said, "Well, no, I've got to be with Joe."
Is she gone?
I think she's gone.
I thought she'd never leave.
All right.
It just reminded me of the line from when they were on I Love Lucy, when they were in Albuquerque, where Ethel's father says, "Ethel May, you were never prettier." And Fred says, "Well, I won't argue with that." All right, let's move on here.
We never forgot her.
No, Ethel May Potter, we never forgot her. So look at tomorrow, folks. You got rabbit ears here with the severe weather risk. Marginal risk now pushes all the way up to the Pennsylvania state line and in Maryland and in parts of the and eastern Maryland, virtually all of Virginia, almost all of North Carolina, all of South Carolina into Georgia. Then you get into slight and enhanced risk in Mississippi, Alabama, southeast Louisiana. I think there actually might be an outside shot that tomorrow morning we'll wake up to a small area of moderate risk in here.
I still say, well, I'm happy that it was verified that I said yesterday. Remember, the marginal area was right along the Tennessee, North Carolina area, and I said by tomorrow I think that they're going to change that and push that further north. They have. I'm still kind of surprised that they don't have us deeper into the general thunderstorm coverage, but I think too that that's probably going to change because I think Joe, Sunday morning we're going to be dealing with kind of a mini squall line here. That is a very vigorous, robust weather front that's going to be cutting across our area early in the day on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree.
And once that passes on by, and once the sun comes out, and once the winds, and those winds on Sunday afternoon, I'm thinking we could be looking at winds gusting 30 to 40 miles an hour, and that would produce a pretty good downsloping effect of west winds. That combined with the leftover mild air over us, again, that's the reason why I think temperatures are going to be soaring through the 60s to, in some cases, 70 when we get to Sunday afternoon.
And that is your off-the-wall, many standard deviations from the mean negative Pacific North America index at work. And it's going to...
Which reached its pinnacle this weekend, and then, as you were about to say, slide on down.
Oh yeah, it's going to rise rapidly, very rapidly next week, and we'll get to that shortly. But in the meantime, just want to run through a couple of things real quick. First off, WPC on their 7-day rainfall has reflecting, of course, the big rains that are going on today and tomorrow throughout the Gulf states, the Middle Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley, 3 to 5 inches of rain. And that also extends, by the way, into parts of southwestern New York and north central New York and northernmost Vermont and New Hampshire on the Canadian side. Now, that's where there's going to be plenty of cold air. So that heavy precip a lot of that is running through the zone on the northern and western edge where we've got winter storm warnings and ice storm warnings up. And with respect to snow, the Weather Service digital forecast from the offices showing what looks like a sliver of 8 to 12 from eastern Iowa across Wisconsin, Madison, Milwaukee, on up to about Green Bay to northern Michigan. And then the amounts kind of tail off a bit as you go south. Looks like 4 in Chicago. And then you start to drop down an inch in St. Louis, Kansas City 6, Oklahoma City 2 to 3, Tulsa 2 to 3. But it's really the ice here that could be a big issue. As you said, Joe, the fact that the ice is going to come first before the snow is not a good thing. You always want it, you want it in reverse. But I'm loading the ice forecast map here, which it's taking its sweet time doing. Come on, load up. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, there it is. I'm finally starting to kick in. Oh, come on, load. This is really ridiculous. Well, I'll let it keep loading. We'll come back to it. Let's go to the radar. Very busy tonight. Showers, western New York, western PA, across Ohio. Heavy rains down in southern Indiana and Illinois. And then, of course, you've got, the real rough stuff here. The radar is very impressive down in parts of eastern Oklahoma to just west of Dallas-Fort Worth. You got this snaking line of what look like what are severe thunderstorms, and they're kind of swinging to these. I just updated it, and the line is actually extended its way further south, south and west of Dallas, all the way down almost to about San Antonio there, and swinging on to the east. Very, very impressive looking here on the radar. And snow on the up parts of Iowa, seeing a little bit of snow and probably some freezing rain going on here as that precipitation gets into the colder air.
It's very, very active. Yeah, there's that snaky, excuse me, there's that snaky line of showers and storms that you were talking about over east central Texas. I guess that's what's causing the fireworks in the Dallas Fort Worth area right now.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I got the lightning map up on my other screen. I want to just let me just whoa. Talk about lightning. Talk about busy. We're getting about 120 131 lightning strikes every minute at the
Woof.
moment.
Wow.
So it's pretty busy. Yeah, there's some big storms just outside of Dallas Fort Worth. There's actually a bunch of them over Fort Worth, and getting strikes there, down toward well west of Waco. I'm just following this map along, and
See,
see, and north and west of San Antonio.
I mean, this is such a robust weather front, a storm system, that I can't possibly see it losing all that much punch when it makes it up into our neck of the woods Sunday morning. That's why I'm pretty confident that we're going to be seeing thunder and lightning here. Even though um, if you look at the GFS and the NAM, the percentages or chances of thunderstorm activity, they only have like 3, 4, 5%.
Right.
I don't understand. That's a categorical number for that. I would have expected to be at least 10 or 15.
Yeah.
But I don't know if
Sunday's
the models are not catching on to this.
Sunday's map, they have the starting at 12Z. So this would be the back edge, but they
Right.
have the northern edge of the line of general thunderstorms, literally running along the southern part of Rhode Island, coastal Connecticut to about New York City, to about Trenton, down to Baltimore, Washington. That's the northern edge of the thunderstorms. Marginal risk in coastal North and South Carolina. Because, of course, the front's going to go through there a little bit later in the day, so I guess it gives it a little more time for something to develop there and gel up a bit.
Yeah, I don't know if you can call this hand drawn. The short on the Weather Prediction Center site. No, this well, I don't know if there's hand drawn or whether there's an algorithm to
Well,
create this map. But they have the cold front 7 a.m. on Sunday morning crossing through western New Jersey and probably will be working. And they have a hatched area right over the New York City metropolitan area. I don't know if that's to signify a possible squall line or a zone of thunderstorms. But in any case,
this is their day 3 map.
this is no, this is short range forecast. This is for Sunday 12Z. The short range forecast days 1/2 to 2.5. I liked it better when they just had the hand drawn.
Yeah,
I don't know what the heck this
I
is,
have
but
it. I just put I have the national forecast chart of theirs for Sunday, January 12th,
right.
but this is drawn for. Oh God, this is actually drawn for later Sunday afternoon when the front is already well offshore. So
You go back to where it says on the menu page, home and forecast analysis.
I see it. What day 1/2 to 2.5?
Correct.
Okay, I'm trying to bring it up on the screen. You have the 12Z Sunday map, correct?
Right. Well, you could scroll along the top.
Yeah, I got it. It's up on the screen now, so everybody can see it.
You can even loop it if you want. No, but it looks like all the action for us is going to be zeroing in right around 12Z on Sunday morning. So that may very well be the time when I don't know about you, Joe. Maybe I'll be up early and checking the radar, and maybe going to lightningmaps.org and seeing if there's anything firing up. I'm sure there is going to be something in and around the Hudson Valley and right on through much of the tri-state area.
All right, so let's bring up the GFS here with all of this, and of course, we're seeing the big high that's out just to the northeast of Bermuda is built back all the way to the southeast coast and back to the Mississippi River, and you can actually see a lot of the you see the isobars, how they swing around. This is truly a warm tropical flow that's coming into the southeast of the Gulf states. All that severe weather and heavy rain, the snow and ice on the northern edge. Then tomorrow morning, again, most of the action remains over the Midwest and the lower and middle Mississippi Valley with the next round of severe weather, while areas from the southeast coast up into New England. It's just this gigantic southwest flow, and we're going to warm up into the 60s. The only thing, Joe, is how much cloud cover are we going to have tomorrow? Because we were cloudy here, at least out by me on Long Island. I don't know how it was by you, but out by me here on Long Island, we were cloudy up until about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we broke out into a little bit of sunshine for the last 2 hours, the hour and a half or so before sunset. I'm not sure what it is right now, but I'm just wondering how much sun we're going to have tomorrow, even though it's going to be in the 60s.
I was pretty surprised last night. We had clouds, but they were high clouds. We even had a bit of a halo effect around the full moon. And then finally the clouds began to lower and thicken in the after midnight hours. And we had basically cloud-filled skies here, Joe, up in the Hudson Valley for a good part of the day. I didn't get a chance to look late in the day whether or not we broke out into any sun. I think, however, the product that I use for predicting cloud cover, it's actually from the Canadian model. It's called Clouds for Astronomical Purposes. Suggests, at least over my neck of the woods, that the clouds are going to thin tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if we were able to see the moon tonight like we did last night through a veil of high cloud cover. And tomorrow, much of the day will be cloudy, maybe some breaks of sun. But again, temperature, and it's going to be dry. It does not look like that we're going to see any precipitation at all tomorrow, I don't think.
I agree.
I think the next chance for any kind of precip, and it would just be spotty shower activity, would not come until maybe late tomorrow evening or after midnight tomorrow night. And then we'll have a couple, 3 hours of one hard whoosh through early Sunday morning with that.
Which I'm showing now on the screen with the GFS with the front through.
With that front coming through. And then right after that, just as quickly, out it goes. In comes the sunshine, the gusty winds, the warm temperatures for the rest of the day on Sunday, and then we'll cool down and turn chillier, although still ahead of the ball game temperature-wise, based upon long-term averages.
At least through Wednesday.
At least through Wednesday, yeah.
It's after Wednesday that we take the bigger step down. And if you look at the surface, and then we're going to go look at the teleconnections in the upper air. But you're watching on Tuesday a high building up in Quebec and moving eastward, and actually in Ontario first, and then moves into Quebec. There's a little bit of action in terms of some showers coming in late Tuesday night, maybe a little bit of snow up in northern New England, no big deal. But the stronger system comes out on Wednesday with a low going to the lakes, and that's going to bring through a strong cold front here late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. I think Thursday could be a pretty interesting day from the standpoint of wind, Joe. We've got a fairly strong storm moving across southern Canada, a really, really tight pressure gradient. You have a 981 low that's north of Toronto by a fair distance, but it's north of Toronto, and a 1044 high sitting just north of Kansas City, going all the way back up into North Dakota. There's a lot of isobars between those two, and I think we could blow away here on Thursday if that's the case.
Yeah, and on the GFS-X prog, the long-range GFS, for Thursday afternoon, they are predicting a wind of, at least at White Plains, 27. Now,
that's a lot.
You don't often see that on that high.
That's sustained.
Yeah. So we could be talking about, you're absolutely correct. We could have wind advisories or high wind watches in effect for Thursday. We could see in this type of scenario, look at all those isobars squeezed together, 50, maybe 55 mile per hour gusts. So it'll be one thing to see what happens on Sunday, but that's going to be short-lived, but a more prolonged period and a stronger period and a more vigorous period of cold air advection moving in with that sweep of wind on Thursday. And I said for a high on Thursday, Joe, in the Hudson Valley, 50, but then I topple it down to 35 for a high on Friday.
All right, this is cold air. This is cold air, and this is part of this whole process now that we're going to see this coming week of a pattern shift. Okay, it is going to happen, and I think we're going to get. This is it, folks. We're by the time this whole process takes place, we're going to be at January 18th or 19th. Okay, so that pretty much means that it's going to be the next 4 to 6 weeks from there where the winter is either going to put up or shut up as far as snow is concerned for the urban I-95 corridor. And I think there will be some chances. Now, how they play out is a whole other matter, and certainly something for the short range when we get there, and not for the long ranges, which is what we're doing now. But I'm going to bring up the 500 here, bring up the upper air to just get into some of the bigger changes that we're seeing with regards to the overall pattern. Hang on, Joe. I just my earbuds keep falling out of my ears.
Yeah. If you take the GFS, the 18Z GFS at face value, they are talking the pattern that's being depicted here suggests that we could be looking at snow and ice for northern Jersey and the Hudson Valley, rain for the most part for New York and Long Island. That would be for late on Saturday night into Sunday of next week.
Right. It might be snow at the start at the coast with this, I thought, but or
Right, yeah.
yeah. So looking at the upper air, this is for Sunday evening when your Pacific North America Index or your PNA is down at minus 600. And notice how rapidly, I mean, really, this is a huge, huge change. It's a huge shift to go from many standard deviations from the mean back to the mean, doing it in 5 or 6 days. That's huge. So the fact that spot there where we get to neutral on the 18th, right around the 19th, 20th, that's where I would look for something to happen, which is what the models seem to be telegraphing. And what's interesting, Joe, is that all the models have something for next weekend. It's not just one. The European, the GFS, the Canadian, they all seem to be targeting next weekend. And it would make sense if you're talking about, this huge change in pressure. The other thing to watch for next week, and I think this might be very important, is that NAO actually goes weekly negative at the end of this next week, just as this next system is coming along. So we might want to keep an eye on cold air. If that NAO is a little more negative, you could wind up seeing that cold air holding on a bit longer and a bit further south. And of course, the EPO, the East Pacific Oscillation, which I've said is always the one I've always felt that was more important, goes strongly negative by around the 17th or 18th of January and stays strongly negative right through the 25th. So that is your cold air coming down, building in Western Canada and moving in. And if you look at this upper air, Joe, it's such a radical change from what we have Sunday night into Monday. The deep trough in the west, the strong upper high that's sitting between the Bahamas and Bermuda. And by the time we get to next Saturday, which we're going to do right now, and just as soon as I move the map, but as we go through the week and into next Saturday, just watch the changes, folks, across Canada. That little vortex there in southwest Canada that I'm toggling back and forth, I'm now going to shoot it eastward, and it runs up into New England. This is our system for Thursday, and it strengthens. Got an upper low there sitting east of Newfoundland. Your next round of energy coming in from the Pacific is forced underneath it. By the time we get to the end of next weekend, we've got a pretty strong flow of cold air coming down out of Canada. Actually, right across the entire polar region, you have higher than normal pressures there. That could be a very significant development to where the weather is going to be going in the longer term. Troughing off the west coast down near Hawaii, a lot of energy there. Big ridge up the west coast. And a complete opposite, a complete flip in just 7 or 8 days from what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, a lot of people who are not weather-minded and are going to be lulled into the false sense of security, like, hey, this is not going to be such a bad winter. by a week from now, they're going to be saying, what happened? I also want to point out, Joe, the differences between the 0Z run last night of the European and the 12Z run today. They had last night on the 0Z run for not this weekend, for next weekend, the 540, the line that usually differentiates snow versus rain, that was way, way up over into northern sections of New York State. And on the 12Z, the one that we just had run a few hours ago, it collapses that 540 line all the way down to virtually where I live, which seems to
Yes, and it
suggest.
actually gave snow on the snow map down almost, south of me. It gave actually over me. It gave 4 or 5 inches over Long Island on the snow map.
So you see, it seems like perhaps in the days to come, we're going to be seeing the models really latch onto that colder air and bring it more further south, more than what she's worth now.
Right.
And
Well,
and
it's very blocky looking when you look at the European and the GFS, but even more so the European today, as you pointed out. I have the 500 up for Saturday morning. You've got higher than normal pressures aloft running from the Azores to Iceland, over Greenland, and then going west to the other side, north of Alaska in the Arctic Ocean. That whole area is showing above normal pressures, and you've got below normal pressures down between from 50 north on southward. It's got there's a very blocky look to this, and it's certainly it's nothing like what we have now. The warm pattern that we have now completely disappears, and as I mentioned earlier, we're seeing this on both on all the models. Really, they all have different ideas, perhaps on how blocky it might be or might not be. But I would pay attention to that NAO in the next few days to see how the models handle that. If we wind up with a slightly stronger NAO, that could make for an interesting situation for some of the urban corridor of the Northeast next weekend.
I'm looking at the European ensemble for at 192 hours. They definitely have some kind of a circulation just off of the Jersey coast for next Saturday morning, and we virtually everybody, Northern Jersey, New York City, Long Island, at or below 540 points north. So if you rely on the ensemble, that seems to suggest that next Saturday we might be looking at a snowfall, which is something we haven't. I mean, today was my what is it, 10 and 39th consecutive day today for me that I have not had to use my snowblower. December 1st, we had, remember that storm that kicked off December. I had up here 4.5 inches, and we've had only minor or modest snowfalls ever since. No need for a snowblower, but maybe, just maybe, that string may be coming to an end. Perhaps not this weekend, but next weekend. What a contrast! Everybody next week, if this all pans out, everybody next weekend will be thinking back longingly to the upcoming weekend, tomorrow and Sunday, saying, "But it was in the 60s. They had these 70 degrees at some point." And now
Happens
later,
all the time.
a week later, boom.
Well, just a couple of things I should mention here. So, well, Scott Briller is not in today because his mom's having some real knee issues. So we wish them both well because for his mom for obvious reasons and also for Scott because he has to deal with his mom with pain. Knee issues are not fun. My mother had both her knees replaced.
Yeah.
Although these days when they do it, they throw you, they basically, it's like going to Home Depot. They just kind of put you on the rack. They change your parts, maybe freshen up your oil a little bit. But he did send, and I really didn't
All of a
get
sudden,
it.
when you just said that, what
One.
the mental picture?
Yeah, I know.
Jack Haley and the Wizard of Oz.
Yes, I mean, but seriously, isn't that's kind of what it's like now? You go in, and they do it. They don't even, a lot of this stuff is outpatient. They don't even do it in a hospital. My mom had both her knees done. She wasn't in a hospital setting. She was in, kind of one of those ambulatory things.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh,
he did mention, and I kind of lost the actual stat, but I'm looking at. Let me bring this up. Let's see. I bring up this. I got to. You know what? We're gonna have to save this. I'll try and do this tomorrow. Well, let me see if I can do it this way. Hang on. Okay.
Now, while you're doing that, let's point out something that was brought to the fore before we even started tonight. Don't know if you heard, it was on the national news, at least on ABC national news. There was apparently some kind of a tour going on in Iceland, and the tour, the group or the company that was running the tour decided to go on with the tour to some obscure spot in Iceland, in spite of the fact that there was a blizzard or an impending blizzard being predicted. They went ahead with it anyway, and the bottom line of it is that the participants, they were stuck for 5 hours in this blizzard. In some cases, some of them had the snow up to their necks.
Jeez. Oh boy. They, you know what? You got to pay attention to these forecasts, folks. You can't just be sending people haphazardly up to regions that are very relatively close to the Arctic Circle and think that there's not going to be any consequence to that. I'm going to bring up a chart. I just want to, something that I brought up many times with regards to, winters up here. And whoops, sorry, here it is. So in graphical form, Joe, you'll see it come up in a moment, are the the seasonal snowfalls for New York City going all the way back to 1869. And it's pretty interesting here because if you look at the period from 1869 to about, 1920 or so, okay, actually to about 1925, the vast majority of the winters in that time frame had above normal snowfall. Okay,
Right.
and then you go from 1925. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 winters in a row, 7 winters in a row where the snowfall was below average, and in some cases way below average. Then it kind of goes mishmash, but actually, so from the period of about 1925 and then continuing into about 1960, okay, most of the years were below average. You have a brief blip up in the 60s where more of the years were above than below. Then you go back to this long stretch from 1970 to 2000 where all the years were below, and then you go from 2000 to today and you see that we're back above in terms of normal. The vast majority of the winters since 2000 have been above normal. But it's pretty interesting how you had this huge burst, what looked like a long cycle of above average snowfalls in this area up until about from 1869 when data was started to 1925-ish. And then after that, the bottom falls out with that minor interruption in the 60s from 1926 all the way to the year 2000. And now we've gone into an upcycle again.
Right, right. And if you want to say it's a cycle, and you base it on what had happened, let's say when they started taking records in 1869, it would then appear that if this matched the 1869, record time frame to about what 1920,
Yeah,
or 20, it appears that we're only about 1/3 of the way through what could be a long stretch of above normal in terms of snowfall. So all of you people out there who are, bitter about the fact like you haven't had your snow yet, stop it. I mean, we've had more than our fair share of snow, at least dating back to the beginning of this century, and it looks like we're going to be turning colder, and we will have some shots at snow now as we move past the end of this week, and who knows, the coming years ahead, maybe more above normal snow years.
Plenty of time for all sorts of weird things to happen, Joe.
Boy, look at
every
that.
winter, every winter something weird happens somewhere around here, at least once.
That's amazing how it's put into graphical form. The snow drought, it seems like to start right around, again, as you pointed out, around 1960. But then look at that. There's that one little blip straight up. That obviously has to be the 78, the year of 78.
By the way, Pamela Gasper just pointing out that there's a tornado warning out for Fort Worth. So I'm just going to see. Let me really fast. I'll probably see if I can bring up the radar, and we can take a look at that.
And Ryan Ford is asking, do we think that the Saturday storm could be a sign that maybe the second half of the winter could be more favorable for snow in the 95 corridor? All I'll say to that, Ryan, is that based upon the experimental 3 to 4 week probability map, put out by Climate Prediction Center, they have us below normal from late this month into the early part of February.
Which may not be a negative.
Which may not be a negative, but Joe, at the same time that they have us below normal in terms of precipitation, they have us below normal. It seems like what they're trying to imply is that the cold air is going to be so heavy that it may actually help to shunt most of the potential storms well off to our south. But a lot can happen. A lot of twists and turns can happen in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. So at least it'll get cold. That's the one ingredient you need for the snow. We'll see how it all plays out as we move through the rest of January and on into February.
I'm trying to get the Fort Worth radar, the loop anyway. Let's see if I can do this. FWS. Okay, great. I do have it. So, where are you? Here we go. So let me get rid of the snow chart. We'll bring up the. Here we go. This is the Fort Worth radar. It's just about. This is as of 7, coming up on 7:50 Eastern time here, 6:50 Central, and you can see the numerous severe thunderstorm and the tornado warning that goes up right on that last frame. And actually, just as quickly as it went up, it was taken down. So I guess they must have seen a rotation, and then the rotation disappeared. But no doubt about it that this is a really nasty line of storms that is moving through Texas, and more severe weather is in store for them as we go through the night. So, all right. So, what are you up to this weekend?
We're taking everything down.
Okay.
I'm going to be on the 18 or 20-foot little giant ladder and taking down the lights from the front of the house, and we'll be putting Frosty and Santa back in the box, taking these 2 giant reindeer that we have on the front lawn and putting them back up in the attic. So that's going to be the plan this weekend, is to take down at least the outside lights, and maybe even we'll start working on the tree too. By the way, for all of you who are interested, 10 o'clock tomorrow night is when the lights on the big tree at Rockefeller Center will be shut off for the season. So if you go now, or if you go through tomorrow and into early tomorrow night, you'll still be able to see the tree. But I guess you could say that they're finally going to turn the Christmas season of 2019, 2020 off late tomorrow night.
Yep. It's over. And the next one will be here before you know it, but hopefully not too quickly. I have nothing really big planned for tomorrow. I actually went out and walked 10 miles today. I did
that's amazing.
20,000 steps. Not bad for a soon-to-be 61-year-old man.
How many? 2,055. I pretty much sat on my you-know-what today for much of the day.
Yes. Well, let me just share with you very, very quickly. There is this magical, when you go on long walks, there is this magical moment, this precious moment that occurs where you discover that you are wherever you happen to be. You realize that the breakfast that you had of bran cereal and chopped pecans has finally decided that it's time, and you find yourself halfway through your walk, equidistant, whichever direction you are, to the nearest bathroom that has indoor plumbing. So I just, I did what any person in the year 2020 would do. I asked the dear Lord to help me, and the Lord did grin, and lo and behold, there was a Starbucks, and and thank God, because I never would have made it back in time if I had to finish the last 5 miles. Happens to me every once in a while. It is not fun. I felt I needed to share that on a Friday night. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, so what do we go? We're going to do something on Sunday morning?
We'll do Sunday morning. Let's not plan for one tomorrow night. I may just decide to take the night off unless the bottom falls out. Maybe I'll do a quick a quick live stream tomorrow evening. But I need a little break here, and I think you need a break too. So yeah, let's try Sunday morning at 10:45. Does that work for you?
Yes, sir. I hope I have power.
Yes, well, we'll find that out. So, okay, so that's the Sunday morning Joe and Joe show on the Coffee with Chaffee show, kind of just, meshed up, or Coffee with Joe's. There you go. So
Whatever.
we'll do that on Sunday. So
Joe,
be sure to
a,
tune in. Go
a
ahead.
little, a little Joe with the two Joes.
Correct. A little Joe. Patreon members, just bear in mind, if you want to read more about, not only read more about the long range, but I have I cut a video this afternoon, a weather in 10 video for Patreon members. So be sure you go onto your Patreon account and check the latest post out on the long range, the latest post out on the severe weather, and the weather in 10 video. And we will see you on Sunday. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. We had a nice crowd tonight, Joe. 242 people are on for a Friday night. That's a lot.
It's too bad we can't share food on this. Have
Yes.
like a party or whatever.
By the way, let me just tell everybody, if you're new to this channel and you've got a Gmail account, log in with your Gmail to YouTube so you can subscribe to to my YouTube channel and you can participate in the chat, as so many do on a nightly basis. And thank you very much. I can't name everybody tonight. Otherwise, if I start doing that, Joe is going to miss the start of Jeopardy. So you go do that.
Let's go, Ken Jennings. He could finish it off tonight. We'll see.
Okay, very good. All right, so we'll see you Sunday morning.
Have a good one.
Good night.